Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hey, greetings to all of you out there in podcast land. I'm Kelly Bass, and it's my honor to host Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly chat with chefs and restaurateurs who have helped make the Mid-South dining scene one of the most vibrant in the country. I am a foodie from way back, actually much longer than that tired term has been around. I spent the better part of 30 years writing restaurant reviews and features for Little Rock, Arkansas-based newspapers and magazines, and now I talk about food rather than write about it, and that's a swap I will take every time. This is our 40th episode of Heaping Spoonful, and my guest today is Jess McMullen, co-founder and co-owner of Flyway Brewing in North Little Rock, Arkansas, which is much more than a creator of some of the world's best beers. Let's just say that. And also Brood Barley, an absolutely fabulous gastropub that's just around the corner from Flyway on Main Street in the Argenta neighborhood of North Little Rock. So, welcome, Jess.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks a lot. Now, you co-created the Flyway vision with your college friend, Matt Foster, when you were both college students in Asheville, North Carolina. I've always heard about Asheville, even years ago, as having a cool craft beer scene. I'm sure that was the case when you were in college, and is it even much bigger now?
It is. It's a ton bigger now than it was back when I was in college. When I was in college, it was just kicking off, you know, and I worked in restaurants and bars that were just beginning to carry craft beer. And so the scene was just starting. The restaurant scene, what it is today, was just starting because now there's over 70 breweries in the city limits in Asheville alone.
Wow. And
it's a town of, 70,000 people.
Wow. So about
it's amazing.
North Little Rock size, really.
Yeah, beer capital of Americas.
Wow. Well, my wife and I are actually flying into there to go to a big music festival in Bristol, Tennessee in September. So we will be checking out the scene.
Heck
sure.
Yeah, I'll give you some spots to go to.
Good. And, while you acknowledge that you drank a lot of beer in college, you're not alone in that. The idea for Flyway wasn't hatched, until years later during one of your reunion get-togethers with your college buddies. So you told me kind of set the scene for what was going on when you all finally decided to do this thing.
So Matt was a teacher. He still is teaching, and Matt would come visit every year, a couple times a year, come back to Asheville, and all of our college buddies would get together, and that went on for like a decade, and we would try and relive our college days, which wasn't always wise, but it was fun trying. And we were this time we were camping. We did a lot of camping, a lot of outdoor stuff in the mountains of North Carolina. And we were at a buddy's house who lives kind of in a holler, and has a cliff overhang. And the scene is a cliff overhanging a campfire while it's snowing outside, and we were all talking about how one day we said we would do something together, and we started talking about beer. We were drinking beer, of course, a lot of it, and a lot of craft beer with all the new breweries in Asheville. And Matt and I began talking about whether we could open a brewery, and what that would look like. And I was kind of at the end of a rope, ready for a life change. Not really the end of my rope, but ready for something new. And Matt was too. And we all, I remember the next morning was foggy. We all got up and left and went our separate ways. And I made it back home, and everybody else did too. And a few days later, Matt called me and said, "Hey, man, were you serious about opening a brewery?" And that was it. That was the start.
Was he already in Arkansas? I know you told me he married a girl from Arkansas.
He was. They met in college. His wife, Heather, is from Fort Smith.
Yeah.
So he moved not long after college. They moved back here, and Matt finished school, and started teaching here at Central High, and was there for a long time. Yeah.
What were you doing professionally before you decided to make this?
Honestly, I kind of bounced around some different jobs. I was in sales. I was in the restaurant bar business for a long time, and then decided I needed to get out of it. Thought it might be time to try something different. I bet you know people that have said that in the past, and so took a break. mechanic and got in sales. And before that, before I came here, I was a stay-at-home dad for 5 years.
Oh, good for you.
And that was
your wife, Tina, is she a nurse? Am I correct?
She is a nurse, yeah.
So the good thing about being a nurse is that you can get work wherever you decide to go. So you're like, hey, honey, you ready to go to Arkansas?
Yeah, that was and she, it's amazing about my wife. I don't ever remember her saying no, or her ever saying, I don't want to pursue this dream. I'd been at home with the kids for 5 years, and I think that was the pivotal, most important part of my life,
Sure.
when it came to realizing, what the next step would be, what the next thing we do. And I remember Tina was actually the final push that said, you've been talking about this for, 2 years with Matt. Are you going to do it or not? I'm not going to say exactly what she said, actually.
Oh, that's great, though.
Well, she did,
the other thing, I mean, what a glorious 5 years to, as your kids are growing up. And, as kids are, at some point, they need a little bit less of the moment-to-moment guidance that Dad was given.
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect timing. So I know that you opened Flyway in December of 2015, but had you all relocated here before that?
We moved in August of 2014.
Okay, so you've been here about a year before you got it off.
So we were here about a year and a half. We had a couple locations that we had thought we had and we lost, and it took us, originally, the idea was to get a building in place and start, have construction and be ready to go, and then we would move here to do that. But it was tough getting things going and finding a spot. So that's when Tina was like, are you going to get off the pot?
Right.
And so we did it.
Well, were the other places that you looked at also in North Little Rock, or were they in
everything was in Little Rock originally. Mm-hmm. We had a few locations. We thought we had an opportunity, and then we, found the spot in Argenta, and it was just
it's perfect.
It seemed perfect.
It is perfect.
Yeah.
No, I tell you, and I came early on, but just the space is great, the location is great, that neighborhood is continuing to boom. I'm really, really, really fond of it. So Flyway, which is people. Let's go to fly away. It's not fly away.
Every single day.
It's Flyway.
Yeah.
See the ducks that are painted on it?
Yeah.
Because this is, my wife's from Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is the duck hunting capital of the world and the rice capital of the world. So we know about the Mississippi Flyway. So is that something that you guys cooked up, or whose good idea was Flyway?
That was Matt Foster's good idea. That was his name. We talked about, there was probably 6 months when all of this kicked off, when all we did was talk about brewery names and beer names, and send beer back and forth to try. And Matt was brewing a lot of beer here on his back porch, and I was drinking a lot of beer.
Right.
So we were just, so Flyway was Matt's idea, and we, thought that, a lot of people aren't familiar with the Mississippi Flyway and the amount of birds that come through this area. And
sure.
We're both passionate about it. I come from a family of bird watchers, and Matt was a duck hunter, so it all just kind of works out.
That's perfect. Well, I've been an early adopter of many products that were introduced here. Like when Rocktown came out, they only had vodka and gin because you got to take a while to age whiskey, and it really wasn't very good. And then when Loblolly got their ice cream up and running, it's the best ice cream I've ever had. Now it wasn't so great. Did your beer start off? And of course, Matt had been brewing it before. Did y'all come out of the gate pretty strong? Were you pretty proud of your original products?
We were proud of our original beer. Free Range Brown Ale was the first beer that we brewed. And Matt brewed that on his back porch, and they brewed it over and over and over again. And we actually, a funny story, a lot of people don't know, we actually brewed our beer on the small system in Loblolly's kitchen. We rented kitchen space from them. And, so Free Range we were proud of as the first beer we put out. After that, I think things were shaky at first. I think we had some hits and misses.
Sure.
But when I look back at when we first opened the location in Argenta and what we're serving now compared to what we served 5 years ago, there definitely was a learning curve.
Well, and that's what you want. You want to progress, and again, so you all put the brewery equipment in where you are, obviously. And have you had to expand that, or did you pretty much put all you could put in there when you built it?
We have expanded. We started off, we have what's called a 10-barrel brewing system, and with that system it's 310 gallons, and We had 4 10-barrel fermenters, and we quickly, really when Blue Wing kind of
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it kind of took flight. We put in a couple more 30-barrel fermenters. We've added another, and then we also added a new cellar in the back with 4 more fermenters back there. So it has been the nice thing about our building is it's pretty tight now. I will say that, but in order to grow as a brewery, the only way you grow as far as is by adding capacity, adding tanks. And it's been a constant every year, a little bit here, a little bit
there. Well, that's great. I mean, our economic system is supply and demand, and it's nice to have demand, and it's incumbent upon you to increase supply, if you want to keep moving forward. So again, in the earlier days, I remember lots of drafts like now, and then I remember cans of Blue Wing. And if I remember correctly, I don't know that y'all had a canning line in there where maybe Blue Wing was made by you and canned somewhere else?
Yeah, we do. We have a contract brewer that we're really happy with. We have we brew 4 beers down at the Brew Hub, which is the company down in Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And they brew a lot of great beer for a lot of good companies. So they brew Cigar City beer and Toppling Goliath beer, which is one of the top 10 breweries in the world. And then places out of Asheville as well, like Green Man Brewing. So we got hooked up with them, and we're really comfortable that our recipes are being duplicated. And so we started contract brewing, and we started with Blue Wing because of how well it sold at Dickie Stevens Park the first year, which is a fun story. That's how we supply cans to the market. It's our recipes, and we oversee it, and we're happy with it.
So you don't have a canning line. I mean, you don't have a room to have a canning line.
Well, we don't have room to have our own canning line, but we do some small batch canning occasionally, which works out well with some of our
still obviously
beers.
Create draft Blue Wing.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
And describe for people who don't know that beer what it's like.
Blue Wing is a really good gateway beer, is what we call it. So a lot of people who came up on Bud Light and Miller Lite can try a Blue Wing. It has when you first open it, kind of has a blueberry muffin nose. It's a little tart, but it's not sweet by any means. So it's funny because when it first took off, we were selling it at the ballpark, and Ben Holmbrook over there gave me a call and said, you won't believe this, but last year, Blue Wing was our number 1 selling beer. And I was like, wow, it's cool to be the best-selling craft beer. And he was like, no, man.
Best-selling
beer? Our beer outsold Mick Ultra and Bud Light. And so
I love it.
That was when we decided to put it in cans.
Yeah, and again, we hope we have listeners around the globe and maybe out on Mars or if the little rover's listening, but Dickie Stevens Park is just a few blocks, and it's where the AA Arkansas Travelers play, and they begin again soon. We lost the 2020 season, but that speaks volumes about that cool crowd that hangs out in the beer garden down there. Because outselling Bud Light is a sweet thing.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So how many beers do you can now? You have 4 of them?
We have 4 year-round beers. So we have our Blue Wing Berry Wheat. We do a Honeybird Blonde Ale that has just a little bit of Arkansas honey in it. It's a nice little honey nose, little bit of a honey finish. We do our Early Bird IPA, Centennial hops, and then we also do our Flying Duck Amber Lager, which is with Rich and Tone Duck Calls out of Stuttgart. And it's a collaboration with them. They did the artwork and named the beer, and Flying Duck Tap Room is down there in Stuttgart at their headquarters, which is...
So we can buy those 4 in retail establishments around Arkansas.
Walmart and Kroger and everywhere that's cool.
Well, I'd already told you, Early Bird's been my thing, so now it's going to be in my house as well as just in a glass in my hand often. So talk about, and I mentioned to you before we started recording that I have beer-loving friends who really talk about how much they like the variety of what you all do, the seasonals of new choices that I guess are fairly small batch. Is that just kind of in the old mode of give people new reasons to come back?
I think so. I think that we brew what we like to drink as well. I think that when the seasons come, I know I like to drink lighter beers, fruitier beers. The brewers feel the same way. We like to rotate our IPAs because we always like to explore the different varieties of hops and what they have to offer. And then we do specialty series like the cake series where we have a coffee cake, a red velvet, a carrot cake, and a fruit cake beer. So that's always fun. Those are based off of recipes from the women in my family. And then we have, just seasonals that people are looking for that time of year, whether it be a spring saison or an imperial stout that comes out of different. So it is about just offering a variety for all the different beer drinkers out there. And it's surprising because a lot of people don't realize they like beer.
Right.
Excuse me. They have no idea until they come and they try a variety that they didn't know exists, like a grapefruit radler.
Sure.
Or a chocolate stout.
Yeah, it doesn't taste anything like, again, your standard issue domestic beers for sure. And so, again, Matt and you are the brainchildren behind Flyway. You're both beer people. Matt's made a bunch of beer. But the beers that folks drink at Flyway and also at Brood Barley they reflect the art and craft of Tim Berkeley and Nathan Grubel.
Yep, that's right. Those guys.
Tell us about those guys.
Yeah, they're the heart and soul of everything we do. Tim was a student of Matt's back in the day.
Back at Central High School?
Yeah. Started brewing with Matt originally on his back porch. So the very first batches, Tim's been with us from the beginning.
Oh, that's good.
And is an owner of the company as well.
Good.
And oversees the brewing as our head brewer. And it's been a heck of a ride. He's expanded his knowledge and talent and repertoire, as far as what he brews. And Nathan was a home brewer who had a little bit of professional experience. And those guys are brewing great beer right now.
Well, I mean, again, I hope you tell them you love them all the time because
All the time. Every single day.
they're the ones that are making what people are coming for, as well as the great food, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. It's time to take a short break. So hang on just a minute or so, and we'll be right back with more from Jess McMullen of Flyway Brewing and Brood Barley. I will tell you, two of the coolest spots in a very cool neighborhood, the Argenta area of downtown Little Rock, Arkansas.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, thanks, folks, and welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. Our guest today is Jess McMullen, co-founder and co-owner of Flyway Brewing and its sidekick, Brood Barley. We've talked a lot about beer, and you and I both love beer, but now let's talk about food. Because when you opened Flyway, and I remember it well, the only food that was available, I don't know if it was available day one, but when I was going there early on, were pretzels. They're really damn good pretzels, and they had different options and different ways to serve them, but they were just pretzels. Was that the plan from the get-go, or did you add the pretzels to give your beer fans something to nosh on?
Kind of both. The plan was to do just have something to offer that would, salty pretzels would sell more beer. So That was pretty much the common sense thing there is if we could just make people want to drink more responsibly. And so we did. We offered pretzels with different salts and different sauces that kind of paired with the beers, and they were named after the beers. And it was a fun concept, and that was all we were going to do. And kind of in the idea of an Asheville brewery, we'll offer one food item and people will come and hang out and drink beer. And we quickly learned that our customers wanted more. They wanted food and they wanted us to do more offerings. And so we started doing, guest chefs and
I remember that.
Specials. And we were really got into that. And our customers still wanted more and wanted us to do more. So that's when, we listened to them, whether it comes to beer or food. And so we were like, okay, it's time to expand the menu. And
Did you have the kitchen space already there? Or did you have to build it out?
We did. We have a very small kitchen space. But we did have everything there because we really wanted to be able to do the guest chef theme.
Right.
And making the pretzels, we needed space. That was a pretty intense operation, making your own soft pretzels.
Yeah,
so that was So
well, that's the thing too is that there's probably plenty of beer loving and beer making friends who open a brewery and then realize they need to also have a restaurant. But you had a background in that already, so that's advantageous because plenty of people in those roles do not have that background. So that is cool. And, if you look at folks and get on the Flyway site and look at the menu online, pretzels are still batting leadoff, but the lineup is really impressive from top to bottom. And I like it because it's so creative. I mean, you have cheese fries. You have gumbo cheese fries. You got really again, creative nachos. I mean, duck confit nachos, blackened gator nachos, and then you've got sliders, but they're giant sliders, which again almost sounds like an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp, because sliders are usually little. But you got a double lobster mac and cheese slider. You got a bacon wrapped quail breast slider. You even got a marinated tofu banh mi slider, and that ain't exactly standard issue bar food. So how did you get from pretzels to guest chefs to that kind of menu?
When we started coming up with that menu, the idea was, what fits our theme, what will bring people down to Argenta, what would create a destination location for our brewery. And a lot of it was, we started with the wild game. We started with the venison and the quail and the gator and, things that you could harvest in Arkansas, because we do work a lot with the game and fish. Mm-hmm. We do have roots down in Stuttgart. And so we were like, so we had to have duck. We wanted to say, what would people see as wild game here in Arkansas? What could they go out and catch some crawfish in the creek, or so that's where the original idea came from, was to do it and do it a different way. The other idea was breweries were doing food trucks all throughout the country, and that's how most of the breweries back east that we hung out at, they would have food trucks. So we were like, let's do a pretzel cart. Let's do a slider truck, and let's do a fry truck, maybe a nacho cart. Let's try and bring the different food trucks onto our menu. So that was how it all came about.
That's cool.
And so far it's it's gone pretty well. It's fun.
When you moved to a full menu of food, did you have to hire a chef, or are you kind of the chef?
Oh, we did. No, I have a big part of the menu. I'm a wannabe chef, no doubt about it.
You don't need to necessarily be in the kitchen all day, every day.
Yeah, no, I don't. So Georgina Jones came in.
Okay.
And she was our chef for a long time, and has done great things. And Gina's still around in a different capacity. But we did a lot of that stuff together, and it was fun.
Really cool. Mm-hmm. And so clearly it was the food, and including those crazy Gina's gumbo fries.
Yep, they're Gina's, that's right.
That attracted the attention of the producers of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, that classic Food Network show with the crazy-haired Guy Fieri running it. So I did an article actually on all of the restaurants in Little Rock and North Little Rock that were featured, and I've talked through all of them, and including to Ren at your place. She gave me the lowdown on how it all came. But for our Heaping Spoonful listeners, talk about the process of getting that phone call or getting that email, to what the experience of dealing with those producers are like, and then what it was like having Guy come in, and then what it was like once the episode aired.
I mean, it was definitely intense. When we got the phone call, I went, turned in everything that they asked for within 24 hours. It was neat. The producer said, "Actually, you've turned in your stuff quicker than anyone ever has." Well, it was kind of cool, and just really went after it because I love the show and I love Food Network, and of course, I'm a foodie myself and watch it all the time. Not as much as I used to, but the whole experience to me, it was wonderful. I still keep in touch with some of the guys that were here, and did the filming through social media. Guy was warm, and the coolest thing about him for me was after we did the filming, we didn't get a lot of time with him, but we chatted a little bit. He sat down and gave me some advice on some things.
Oh, neat.
And I took it as, the guy's a trained chef and knows what he's doing. And I walked away from that with a couple new ideas and new ways to do things that I didn't know, including using different products. So the whole experience, it was a whirlwind. But it was fun, and I look back on it very fondly.
Yeah, and then if I remember correctly, back to the article I wrote, I believe the episode aired in August of 2018, or around that time.
Yeah, it was around then.
And so it comes on, and all of a sudden, people start showing up.
Yeah, it's neat. We have a lot of people that come in now because of D&D, and whether they're traveling through or they come down there. So, we talked a lot with our staff on how those people need to be treated. People come not necessarily want to come in and drink beer. They want to come in and try the diners and drive-ins and dives experience. Triple D is what I meant to call it. Yeah, and so it's been good. It definitely helped. It helped with business. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I've talked again to lots of folks, and even when it's repeated, they see a bump. And one thing I will also say is for those who may not have their geography in their mind, Little Rock and North Little Rock, Arkansas, or basically North Little Rock even more, is at the confluence of Interstate 30 and Interstate 40, which are two of them. You're going from Texas to New York, you're coming through Little Rock. You're going from California to Tennessee, you're coming through Little Rock. And so there's a Flavor Town app. And so people have this app, and they say, where's Guy been around here? Oh, we're going to pull into Flyway and have these gumbo cheese fries. So, and it just keeps getting repeated. So I think that's a beautiful model.
And they have like a rankings, on how many you've been to. They have people, on social media, people be like, well, I've been to, 500. So, I mean, it's ridiculous numbers, because it's been around a long time.
I'm not going to name names on here, but I've got a good friend who owns a restaurant in Little Rock who turned down the opportunity to be on, and I think he's still kicking himself. So
wow.
I'll tell you who that is once we're not
Okay.
So we are recording this episode of Heaping Spoonful on the last day of April 2021, and while the COVID-19 pandemic is fading, it is not gone, as we all know. We've all been dealing with this for more than a year, but from a distance, it appears Flyway weathered the storm better than many. Talk about your reaction to what you could and couldn't do, and then your tent city and your decision to give up your parking lot to have an outdoor place for people to gather.
Our reaction to COVID was, of course, like all of my friends in the business, was shock and sadness and fear and everything as we were shutting down and trying to figure out what was next. But I'm fortunate to have, you mentioned Ren earlier. We had a Sarah who worked with us at the time and has since moved away, and our brewers and just our crew at Flyway stepped up, and we call it forced creativity. Our backs were against the wall, and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And we actually... It was some of the most, this is odd to say, but some of the most fun we had in a couple of years was like, how are we going to look at this, great crisis as opportunities? And that's the quote that we live on, and that's an old quote that's been around. I can't remember who said it, but within crisis lies the seeds of opportunity, And so we said, how can we benefit from this? What can we do? What can we change? How are we going to be different? And so that's where Tent City came from, was when restaurants were opening, back up, or we weren't going to open back up inside. It wasn't time. It was right. The 33% wasn't doable anyhow. You probably know a lot about that. It just wasn't feasible. So we just started putting tents up in the parking lot, and the Downtown Argenta Council helped us with that.
Yeah.
Great people. Loaned us tents. That's where we started. And Chris Ken over there, and man, we treated it like a Western theme. We were like, because you had to put a lot of rules in place, that we had a sheriff who would make sure everybody was wearing their mask and not being cantankerous, and, and doing the things that keep us, keeping our customers safe, keeping our staff safe. And it really, 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 really took off, in a way that was good for COVID, good for serving people during COVID, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, and again, the other advantageous thing for you is that you're creating beers that are sold in retail, and so people didn't quit buying beer, and they probably drank more beer. It just wasn't as easy to drink it right there at your location, but you still made beer. And so, no, I think it's great, and the system is great. I show up, I place my order, and usually by the time I pay and get to my table, the beer's already out there. And, it's just outdoors makes people more comfortable, and we're now moving into really nice weather. It's the end of April, and so you're going to be viable. It'll be a little hot in the summer, but, we'll see how long you need to continue to work that model.
Last year, we proved that people sit under a tent, and now I know it was during COVID, but people would sit under a tent and drink really good cold beer when it's 98 degrees outside.
Oh, I've done it at Dickie Stevens Park for sure.
Yeah, so we were looking forward to continuing these new things.
And there's plenty of street parking around there. Plus, you got a parking lot on the other side.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
No, that location, which I think was it a pool hall? Was it? I remember like billiard sticks on the side of it.
You know, originally it was a Safeway grocery store. Yeah. A lady came in and told me one time it was the first electric opening doors that she'd ever seen in her life when she was a little girl. And then it was like a BF Goodrich. You know, there were bay doors you can see along the windows. Our floors cracking, kind of where the lifts were located at one time. We got to get that taken care of. And then it was a pool hall. Yeah, Mac Daddy's pool hall.
Yeah, I never went in there, but I drove past it and saw the stuff. That's cool. Well, so as we have discussed, and it's clear it was a love of craft beer that led Matt and you to open Flyway, and the food thing came later, and it had to evolve. But boy, you're really known for good food now, and just ask Guy. So. Was food the primary focus? Was beer the primary focus? Or were craft cocktails the primary focus? Or working with your cousin, Brian McFadden, the main thing behind the decision to create Brood Barley, which basically is around the corner? What all was behind that?
So we're fortunate in Arkansas that we can have more than one retail permit, or more than one spot under our permit to sell beer. So The original idea for a second location came about, 6 months before we leased that spot. And when it came available, we went after it pretty hard because we'd seen breweries around the country have side projects right around the corner, whether it be a second tap room, a sour house, or barrel aging, or just a food location. So I think the main focus was to, of course, sell more beer. We had some little tanks in the back of the building that could be the Brood Barley cellar. Mm-hmm. And we started doing some barrel aging and some fun, funky projects. So the original idea was all about beer, but we love cocktails. I love cocktails and wine, and I definitely love food. And so we just were like, well, we needed to create a concept that was extremely different, a whole different experience when you walked in Brood and Barley. Than when you were at Flyway. So I think the motivation is all the above, man. I think that's the best thing I can say. And my cousin was after we leased the building, the project was moving. He came into it, but I think the answer is all of that. Yeah,
which is so cool. And so talk about Brian and his background, and what that brings to Brood and Barley. Was he a restaurant guy?
He was. Brian's been around in the restaurant business for a long time, up and around Philly, in the suburbs of Philly, and has experience at everything from dive bars to gastropubs to really old school locations, hotels. He's had really good experience as far as seeing what some of the cutting edge culinary stuff is in the country. If that makes sense.
Well, how perfect. And, just from talking with you and reading a little bit, it sounds like you guys are pretty tight. I know he's a few years younger than you are, but I'm sure it was just like, wow, my little cousin and I are going to be doing this project together.
Yeah, I remember calling him and asking him, if he'd be interested in moving to Arkansas, the first time. And I was surprised because right off the bat, he said, I think I might. And that's not what I expected because we'd always talked about food and texted pictures back and forth over the years and cooked together whenever we saw each other. And so it's been, Brian is... he's just getting started, man.
And that's so cool. And he's a Philly guy. And I've traveled quite a bit, and I've been to Philly a few times, and I've been to Pat's, and I've had Mike's. I've had some of the classic cheesesteaks there. But one thing a little aside here, I have learned is that you're not going to survive in Philly with a bad cheesesteak. So even if you don't go to the famous places, you find some good ones. I've found the exact same thing in Baltimore about crab cakes. I've found the exact same thing. Fadley's is my favorite, but I can find good crab cakes. I found the thing about muffalettas. I've been to Central Grocery where they were invented. You can stop in a little, Easy Mart and find a pretty good muffaletta. But he's brought real Philly cheesesteaks to North Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, they're legit.
Yeah.
Legit cheesesteak is what it's called for a reason. And when we put it on the menu, Brian was very intense and saying, don't bring cheese whiz up here. No orange cheese on my cheesesteak.
Right.
No bell peppers. He's very very passionate about it, and we'll definitely tell anyone that wants to hear that it is a like shaved ribeye,
Yeah.
Chopped onions into the ribeye and a provolone cheese sauce, and it's a very good sandwich.
Oh, that's going to be next for me. So, y'all have done a lot of things right at Brood Barley. I am intrigued, though I understand and appreciate the choice to serve draft beers at Brood Barley. Clearly, they're made at Flyway, but they're not sold at Flyway. And the drafts that are sold at Flyway aren't sold at Brood Barley. So, talk about the decision to segregate the two beer menus.
Yeah, I remember when I told people that Blue Wing would not be on tap at Brood Barley. And they were like, well, yeah, what are you doing? You're crazy. And I'm like, well, no, we're creating two totally separate concepts here. A lot of the food that we do at Brood Barley is focused toward, a lot of the beer we do at Brood Barley is focused towards food. Food pairings. We have a food pairing menu that we offer every day. It changes on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, depending when they get to it. But it's incredible, and pairing beer with food is one of mine Brian's favorite thing to do. Excuse me. So that's been the feature is figuring out beers that really go well with food, and to not have any crossover on the taps. And we will continue to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then you guys got David Burnett, who is there's a lot of really good bartenders, mixologists, whatever, that are creative and have really introduced a whole different level of sophisticated cocktails to the Little Rock, Arkansas area. But he's, one of my favorites and has a great reputation. So you told me that that when he was at South on Main, he was the first one to go, I want to sell Flyway beer.
That's right. We were brewing one keg at a time, and he put free-range brown ale on tap at South on Main, and proceeded to put some of the different beers that we brewed on tap for us to try out. And I remember we were trying to get Flyway open, and spent many a night sitting at the bar with David Burnett saying, I don't think this is ever going to happen. And having his craft cocktails, the guy is he's a genius behind the bar.
And he is, of all the things he's known best for, his eggnog, which is won like the eggnog contest over and over. So talk about his eggnog and what kind of sales you get out of that.
So I promised Dave when he came to work with us that I would not ask him to make eggnog, and because I remember the hours he put in doing that in the past. And he volunteered to do it, and we sold gallons and gallons and gallons of eggnogs.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Just as I was earlier extolling the creativity of the Flyway menu, so many interesting takes on nachos and sliders and stuff, and you told me what I hadn't realized, which is a lot of that's tied to Arkansas game. The Brood Barley menu is incredibly creative. And are those all Brian's creations, or is that you and him and whoever has a good idea putting in to create that menu?
Brian and Melanie have come up with, Melanie Wood is our sous chef, and most of the recipes are theirs, but we definitely have a cooperation where we kind of mash up all of our ideas, and it was fun coming up with that menu, and I know that I'm starting to lose my voice. Excuse me.
It's okay.
But we definitely had fun. It's kind of a mashup of all of us. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I won't keep you talking too much longer, but a little bit more. And I will, again, if you're anywhere close enough to get to North Little Rock, Arkansas, get online, look at the Brood Barley menu, and then decide what you're going to get. And if you're not, go look at it anyway and be amazed. So I'm going to do a little lightning round where I'm going to throw out a Brood Barley menu item, and you just tell us a little bit about it. So the Scotch deviled eggs. Tell me about those, because I know about a Scotch egg, I know about a deviled egg.
So I wanted deviled eggs on the menu, and Brian wanted Scotch eggs. So we just put them together and made Scotch deviled eggs after many, many nights of arguing about which is better.
Yeah, and you just mix both.
Yeah.
And then the crispy blue chips.
Man, it's the sauce on the blue chips. It's the sauce. It's a mild blue sauce that Brian has just perfected, and the blue cheese crumbles are great. But the sauce itself.
Well, the chips are good, too.
And the chips are high-quality chips.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah. Okay, so another thing you just don't find often anywhere in Little Rock or North Little Rock is you have a pound of steamed mussels done 3 ways. So I guess you get a pretty good supply of mussels, and I guess people are liking them.
You know, our mussels are great. We just decided that we didn't see a lot of people doing mussels. Maybe you'll see them here and there on the menu. Something that Bray and I would always love to eat together with a good Pilsner. We have our proper pills that pair great with the mussels. So we're getting ready to change them up. We're getting ready to have new, like Mel's Buffalo mussels are coming.
Ooh.
And then we have Grandma's Sweet Tea mussels.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we're doing some new stuff with our mussels, and we will always do that. We love them. Yeah.
And then tuna and tentacles.
Tuna. So our menu. So the tuna comes from Melanie. She's originally from Hawaii.
Oh wow!
And so she has a great recipe for the tuna. And then the tentacle is Brian and I. You know, we visit a lot of gastropubs. We like eating at bars that have great food. And it seems like every restaurant or every bar that was our favorite had some kind of octopus dish. And we were like, let's put octopus on our menu. So we use a local, it's called redneck lipstick barbecue sauce on the octopus. And it's amazing.
That's cool. And then you have pierogies and crawfish. So house-made pierogies, which again, I don't think you're going to find those anymore.
Pretty labor intensive. You know,
yeah,
they are. And the potato dumplings, that is the fried tarragon on top. It's a really interesting flavor combination and is one of our top selling appetizers for sure.
So tell me about the dish that's called the rib.
The rib. The rib was originally going to be the shank, but we know beef ribs in these parts, you know, down in Texas, you know, everybody's trying to smoke a beef rib. Mm-hmm. So we found a really high quality beef rib and we were like, let's do something different with it. So we braise it in red wine, mirepoix, and just really wanted to create a dish that was jaw-dropping when it was set in front of you. And if you've seen pictures of it or if you've seen it in person, it's one heck of a dish.
It's like something the Flintstones might like.
And
right,
that's exactly what it looks like. It is.
And then you've got a beer tasting menu. So for $40, what do you get?
It's $44.44.
Okay, $44.
And it's $11.11 per course, and each course comes out paired with a full beer, and it's almost full beer, and it changes constantly.
Just whatever brand and Melanie or
whatever they want to pair, but they spend a lot of time. I'm over there about bi-weekly with them, trying different food and different beer, and we also do quarterly beer dinners as well. So it's something that we are passionate about, and so that's probably a lot of people have written about that, saying that's the best value on the menu. It's something else.
Golly, I just can't think about what I'm going to get next. All right, well, that's quite a creative, intriguing, and well-executed menu at a really trend-setting gastropub, the likes of which this area really hadn't seen. So, you know, for a couple of guys who just went to college and hung around and drank beer, you guys have really created something pretty special, times two, right around the corner from one another. So I really appreciate Jess for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. I look forward to watching and contributing financially to the continuing upward trajectory for Flyway and Brood Barley. And thanks to all of you all out there in podcast land. Thanks for listening to Heaping Spoonful. I thank you for listening. I thank Vinny Keith for making this possible. Remember that we put 2 of these out on the interwebs every month, the first and third Tuesday. So please check out the new ones and catch up on any ones you missed. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.